This is very simple to remember. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In the last video, I showed you how awesome the mod wheel macros can be on the Digitone II when it comes to live performance. But how are you supposed to remember what each fader and each encoder is doing across all of your different jams? Well, the answer is you need one single system that is simple to use and that you can stay consistent with throughout all of your jams. I may have stumbled over the perfect setup for myself, so I wanted to share this with you so that you can hopefully benefit from this as well. Maybe you can take some inspiration from it to develop your own system. The Launch Control XL3 is one hell of a MIDI controller, but this technique you could probably apply to almost any MIDI controller, as long as it has a few faders and encoders. And similarly, the macros built into the Digitone II works on all of the elektron boxes in this shape, except for the original Digitakt. Unfortunately, that one doesn't have any macros, but all of the other ones do. So if you have any of those boxes, you should be good to go. Let me break this down on the Launch Control XL3 first. I have 8 columns of controls. So each of these columns maps to one element of all of my performances. First column is kicks. Second is all the other drums. I'll get back to this one. Third one is bass. The fourth one is pads, harmonies, essentially. 5 is arps, and 6 is leads. Lead means the more important melody in the song. 7 and 8 I have reserved for other things. For some songs, I may need more melodics, and then I would use it for those. I have the first row here. The colored row is for mutes. So basically, this mutes all of these 8 elements. The faders are for the mod wheel macros. And then this row of encoders is for the breath control macros. That's pretty much all I'm using this for at the moment. So I do need your help because I don't know what to do with this other section. If I play this part, I can modify the bass using this fader. You could hear that the bass is changing. These two, again, this is the kick. This is just a technique I'm using to have the kick disappear a little bit. Same thing with the drums. I'm sort of almost moving them out to another room or another space, and I can bring them back. And the lead, can just increase the intensity of the lead with this fader. Some of these, I am also leveraging a second row of macros. For the bass, for example, I'm using that to create a bit of a more resonant bass. I can combine that, of course, with the first one. That sounds maybe a little bit too much, but it can be used in combination to some degree. I do have a couple of extra parameters that are mapped directly to MIDI CCs. This one is for reverb decay time, and this one is for delay feedback. If you want to increase the energy at some part, maybe you can dial this up, and you can have this very intensive build-up. You have to be careful. Maybe you hit funk no before your eardrums break. All right, so now you understand the setup. Now I'm going to show you how I'm setting this up on the launch control so you can replicate this configuration. You have this app that is called Novation Components, and here I have my setup. So I have this row of faders mapped to CC number 1, and I have this row of encoders mapped to CC number 2. And those are standard CC values for mod wheel macros and breath control. This is going to be the same across every single synthesizer, sampler, groove box, whatever you have that supports MIDI. Then I have some more Digitone specific stuff here. So I have mutes for the global mutes. And that basically means that if I press this button, I'm going to mute my kick track. I always have the kick on track 9. And if I mute my drums, I'm always going to mute 10, 11, and 12 because I always have my drums on track 10 to 12. And if you haven't watched my other video where I go over maintaining a consistent setup for the tracks on the Digitone II, you can check that video out here or down here in the description, but stick around because I want to show you this first. And then I have these two, like I showed. I have this one specifically mapped to CC30, which is reverb decay, and then I have this one to CC number 24, which is for delay feedback. So that's going to be specific depending on which synthesizer you're using. Check the manual for your synthesizer or groove box to figure out which number you should use for what thing. And of course, I should say that you can also rename these things. So I named this one mod kick, I named this other one mod drums. And you can actually see when I'm dialing this up, you can see on the screen that it says mod drums. And it also says which MIDI channel. So I'm using different MIDI channels for each of these 8 parts. And essentially I've picked MIDI channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you see if I select this lead mod wheel, it's going to be MIDI channel 6, and then 7, and then 8. So yeah, this is very simple to remember. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, if you want to copy my setup one-to-one, I can provide that configuration file for Launch Control XL3 on my Patreon, so you can just go and download it from there. And now let me show you how I'm setting this up on the Digitone II. So what I do is I go into Settings, scroll down to MIDI Configuration, and I select Channels. Here, I can see which MIDI channel is mapped. It can be mapped to off, or it can be mapped to a channel. So in this case, my kick is on track 9. Let me step out of the mute mode. So this is my kick. And then fader number 2 is for all of my drum tracks. So I have my drums are here. And that means that I simply set track 10, 11, and 12 to map to channel 2. And bass is always on track 13 and 14. So I just set 13 and 14 to map to MIDI channel 3. That's all there is to it. So basically, you just need to make sure that whichever MIDI channels you chose for these 8 encoders or these 8 columns, you make sure that you have the same corresponding mapping in your project. I recommend to keep things consistent across all of your projects so you don't have to overthink things. You can, of course, stay flexible and have different mappings per project on the Digitone II and use the same general setup with MIDI channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for all of your projects. It depends on how modular you need things to be. The beautiful thing about this is that, let's say, for example, I have this obviously mapped to my lead. Let's say I'm using another synthesizer like the Novation Peak or maybe the MiniFreak for my lead, and I'm using everything else for the Digitone, then I could just basically make sure that that other synthesizer is mapped to MIDI channel 6, which means that I could still use the same controllers here and it would work the same way. So I don't need to think about, oh, now I have a different setup with different synthesizers, so now I need to rethink how I'm doing things. No, it's the same thing. You basically just move this one fader that's going to map to lead. Let me talk a little bit about why I have every drum mapped to one fader. My type of music is leaning more towards melodic tracks. And so for me, drums are important, but they're not something where I need to have super granular control for each element. What's beautiful about this, though, is that you can still have different macros per sound. So obviously, track 10, 11, and 12 are all mapped to MIDI channel 2. And that means that you can set up different macros for each of these drums. So on one project, maybe you just want this to control your snare and you want the hi-hat to always be present. Well, that's up to you in terms of how you design this in your project. But you still know that this is the drum thing I want to move and change over the course of my jam. And this is the secondary drum element or spice that I have at my disposal. So you can think of this as just a surface of spices that you can add to your jam. Now, again, I still have a bunch of encoders unassigned here. I need your help. Let me know in the comment what you think I should do with this. Maybe the solution is that Novation just adds aftertouch support. Then we have another row of macros at our disposal. That would be really nice. But yeah, if you have any other ideas for other things, let me know. So yeah, that's my system. Maybe I'm a bit cocky and overly confident when I'm saying this, but I think that this is a system that I will stick with. If this was helpful to you, I would really appreciate if you hit the like button. And if you want to see more content like this, again, this is part of a series of tutorials that I'm doing around this jam called Dune. And in the next video, I'm going to do the full track breakdown. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.